Stay safe. I'm Uncle Ivan, the talkative uncle. Today I'd like to share with you an in-depth discussion of Lu Xinzhong's Bible translation. The Lu Xinzhong Bible was born in the mid-20th century, at a time when the Chinese church was eager to break away from the tradition of translation dominated by Western missionaries and establish a Bible translation based on the original languages by Chinese scholars. In 1939, during the war, Pastor Lu Xinzhong, 1898 to 1988, received a revelation and decided to devote himself to Bible translation. At the time, Chinese churches primarily used the Union Version, 1919, a collaborative effort that still bore the influence of Western missionaries. Lu Xinzhong felt a strong need for a Chinese Bible translated entirely from the Hebrew and Greek originals by Chinese scholars to more accurately convey the original meaning of the Bible. He resigned from his teaching position at Minnan Theological Seminary in 1940 to devote himself fully to this translation. This marked the first time in the history of Chinese Bible translation that a single Chinese scholar had independently completed an original language translation, a groundbreaking achievement. Lu Xinzhong's translation employs a strict formal equivalence translation method, also known as literal translation. This approach emphasizes preserving the grammatical structure and literal meaning of the original text as closely as possible, meticulously detailing every word without adding or subtracting, easing or avoiding unnecessary meaning. In his preface, Lu Xinzhong explicitly stated, "We must maintain the grammatical structure of the original text, ensuring a coherent tone and appropriate emphasis, in order to maintain the greatest balance between fidelity, expressiveness, and elegance." He even rejected non-Chinese grammar, believing it would be wise to apply as much new grammar as possible that is both accessible and understandable to Chinese people, with the goal of allowing readers to feel as if they were in Jewish society 2,000 years ago. This translation philosophy contrasted with the prevailing free translation method of the time. Lu Xinzhong chose to sacrifice some of the fluency of the Chinese language in exchange for greater fidelity to the original text. He believed that any attempt to maintain a certain degree of consistency in translation, or to translate the original grammar literally, inevitably results in relatively lengthy sentences, which inevitably compromises elegance. However, for the sake of preserving fidelity, is there any other way? Lu Xinzhong's translation used different original texts at different stages. The 1946 draft of the New Testament was based on the 1910 edition of the Greek New Testament edited by Alexander Suter of Oxford University. The 1952 revised draft of the New Testament switched to the more authoritative 17th edition of the Greek New Testament by Eberhard Nestle, 1941. The Old Testament was primarily based on the Masoretic text, but also consulted ancient translations such as the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Aramaic Paraphrase, the Latin Vulgate, and the Septuagint. This multi-textual approach demonstrates Lu Xinzhong's emphasis on textual criticism, striving to select the most reliable reading among various variant texts. His choice of texts reflected the highest standards of biblical scholarship at the time and was more advanced and accurate than the text used in the Union Version. The most striking feature of the Lu Xinzhong version is its exceptionally faithful translation style. First, its vocabulary strictly corresponds, translating identical Greek or Hebrew words into the same Chinese term whenever possible, facilitating vocabulary research. Second, it maintains the original syntactic structure, faithfully reflecting the grammatical characteristics of the original text, even if this results in a slightly awkward Chinese expression. Third, it does not shy away from vulgar language. For example, its translation of Psalm 37 verse 24 as though he fall, he will not be thrown headfirst, was criticized as too vulgar at the time, but now appears more vivid. Fourth, its use of modern punctuation marks differs from the classical punctuation of the Union Version. Fifth, footnotes provide information about the original text and explanations of the translation, helping readers understand the rationale behind translation choices. These features make the Lu Xinzhong version a valuable tool for Bible study, particularly suitable for theological students and pastors conducting in-depth Bible research. In the preface to his draft of the New Testament, Lu Xunzhong explicitly stated that this translation is intended for intellectuals, theological students, and interpreters, and for students in depth study and exploration. Therefore, the Lu Xunzhong translation is particularly suitable for the following groups. First, seminary students and theological researchers, as its literal translation facilitates understanding of the original text structure and vocabulary. Second, pastors and preachers preparing sermons and conducting exegetically research can more accurately grasp the original meaning of the text. Third, believers with a basic biblical foundation can engage in in-depth Bible study and personal reading. Fourth, Bible translators and linguistic researchers can use it as a reference for translation. However, due to its relatively difficult language, it is not suitable for daily Bible reading by new believers, nor for public reading, as the literal translation lacks fluent sentence structure. In terms of usage, the Lu Xunzhong translation is best suited for quiet individual study and small group Bible study, rather than for public reading in large gatherings. Compared to the Union Version, the Lu Xunzhong translation is more faithful to the original text, but slightly less readable. The Union Version adopts a semi-classical style, with elegant yet slightly archaic language. The Lu Xunzhong translation uses vernacular Chinese, but its literal translation can sometimes appear stiff. Compared to the modern Chinese version, the latter employs a dynamic equivalence translation method, focusing on conveying meaning rather than preserving form. This makes it more fluent and easy to understand, but it lacks the accuracy of the original text. Compared to the New Chinese Version and the Chinese Classical Version, both of which are literal translations, the Lu Xunzhong translation is the most thorough. The advantage of the Lu Xunzhong translation is that it is the most faithful to the original text, making it suitable for Bible study. The disadvantage is that the language is less fluent and unsuitable for daily use by ordinary believers. This trade-off reflects Lu Xunzhong's translation philosophy of preserving faith, preferring to sacrifice fluency for accuracy. The Lu Xunzhong version demonstrates a unique perspective in the translation of key verses. For example, in Matthew 16 verse 18, the Union Version renders it, "I will build my church on this rock," while the Lu Xunzhong version renders it, "On this rock I will build my meeting place." Using meeting place rather than church is closer to the original meaning of the Greek word ecclesia. In John 1 verse 1, the Union Version renders it, "The Word was God," while the Lu Xunzhong version renders it, "The Word was God," maintaining consistency in the divine designation. In Romans 3 verse 25, the Lu Xunzhong version renders propitiation as a sin-purifying sacrifice, more directly expressing the meaning of the Greek word hilasterion. While these translation choices sometimes spark debate, they all have their textual and linguistic basis, reflecting Lu Xunzhong's meticulous analysis of the original text and independent theological judgment. Comparing these differences among different translations helps believers gain a more comprehensive understanding of the richness of the Bible. While the Lu Xunzhong Bible has its own unique linguistic expression, its fidelity to the original text of the Bible sets an important benchmark for Chinese Bible translation. This translation reminds us that every translation choice carries the translator's understanding and reverence for God's Word. In this age of multiple translations, we should be grateful to God for giving the Church such faithful servants, allowing us to gain a deeper understanding of God's Word through different translation perspectives. May we all leverage the strengths of various translations, root ourselves in the truth, and allow God's Word to shine even brighter in our lives. If you would like to know more about today's information or other content, please leave a comment below. Thank you for your support. I hope you will subscribe, enable notifications, and share to support the continuation of this channel and learn more. You can also visit my Patreon. Let us come to know God, reflect on faith, and live out Christ together.